What are the most inexcusable changes Hollywood has made to great plays? Stay tuned. Welcome back to my channel, everybody. In this video, I'll be counting down the top 10 changes a film adaptation of a great play has made that I, as a lover of the theater, just cannot abide. Now, don't misunderstand me here. Not all of the films I'll be discussing in this video are terrible adaptations. All I'm saying is that the specific thing that they changed absolutely did not make things better. And the comparison of the play to the film is often a lesson to writers about why the former is a classic and the latter is not, which can give my fellow playwrights something to think about regarding creating great drama in their own works. So, that said, without further ado, the top 10 most inexcusable changes. Starting off this countdown, we have the happy ending of Cat on a Hot Tin Roof. Now, the pressure to tone down the negativity of the original ending.
Oh, I do love you, Brick. I do.
Wouldn't it be funny if that was true?
That goes back to the first performances, and in fact, published versions of Tennessee Williams' masterpiece contain two Act 3s, one with his original ending, and the other that they made him rewrite. But the 1958 film version goes even further, ending the film showing Brick and Maggie being totally in love again, and it just does not fit with the tone Williams was clearly going for. The rewrite he came up with for the 1970s revival, which in addition to taking advantage of the fact that he was no longer prohibited from using the F word instead of that ridiculously corny substitute, saw him change it back to Brick's same pessimistic final line. That rewrite, Williams later said, was the definitive version of his personal favorite play, and for good reason. There is a lot to criticize in the 1972 film adaptation of Man of La Mancha, starting with the casting of Peter O'Toole. But the change that bothers me the most is the subtle change in Aldonza / Dulcinea's response to Sancho.
Aldonza.
Dulcinea.
In the play, it was a strong and defiant, "My name is Dulcinea," vehemently asserting that she wishes to be called the name that for the entire play she's been defiantly telling Don Quixote to stop calling her because that's crazy. The fact that she's done such a complete 180 and the passion she now feels about it now is a tribute to how much she, like hopefully the audience, has been moved by what we've seen him do throughout the play that's now drawing to a close. It is so powerful and moving, and I just don't know why the film adaptation insisted on weakening it like that. In another Williams masterpiece whose film adaptation was substantially weakened by the need to tone down its tragic ending, we have the even more extreme case of the Hays Code, which not only severely limited the ability to even imply the rape, but in order to get it past the censors, they had to comply with the code's requirement that people who commit evil acts must be shown to be suffering the consequences of those actions. Now, I talked about what I thought of this in my video from a couple years ago about censorship that I made in response to Disney Plus showing Hamilton with all the F-bombs excised. But regardless of what I think of that, I will say that one big reason this does not rank higher on my list of abominations is because the viewer can at least entertain the possibility that the ultimate resolution of the conflict, which may not actually have been fully resolved by the time we fade out, does actually end the way the play had it end, we hear Stanley screaming after she's gone upstairs to Steve and Eunice's apartment, but we can at least remember that that's not the first time we've heard him screaming that after Stella has walked out on him, supposedly never to come back. Yes, she tells him not to ever touch her again, resolved that she's never coming back to him, but we've heard that before. Is she? I still don't like it, but that's something else that makes it interesting. Folks, do theater lovers a favor. If you think something is stupid, then for God's sake use something else as your source material. Or, God forbid, make something original. Hollywood adapts Dr. Seuss and makes fun of the fact that we're talking in rhyme. I think a large part of why so many productions of Shakespeare have actors that have no clue on how to speak in verse is a conscious choice because they feel it's stupid, because it's unrealistic to have people rhyming and speaking in verse, as opposed to all other movies that are so completely true to how things work in real life. And it's clearly the same thing with musicals.
So an actor is saying his lines, and then out of nowhere, he just starts singing? Yes! Well, that is the stupidest thing that I have ever heard. You're doing a play, got something to say, so you sing it?
Now, I've heard some people say that the reason they have to change musical numbers into bits where the actors are talk singing is because, well, these are movie stars, not Broadway musical actors, so they can't also be expected to be able to sing well. And I'm still not buying it. Watch Ella Enchanted if you think Anne Hathaway can't sing. And if you're still not convinced, there's the bishop who talk sings through the entire giving you this silver to become an honest man part that was played by the actor who plays Jean Valjean on stage in the original production. Are you trying to tell me that it's because he can't sing? No, it's because the filmmakers decided it was stupid. Nobody forced you to adapt this, folks. Make another movie and let the people who love and respect the original artists adapt their work. It amazes me the way Terry Gilliam is said to have been outraged by the way his galloping on fake horses gag was copied by Shrek in an homage, but not about its totally inappropriate use by Kenneth Branagh in his otherwise great adaptation of Much Ado About Nothing. Actually, everything about Michael Keaton's portrayal of Shakespeare's best comedic role was the one big weak point in the film, but this in particular stands out. It's sad that modern audiences have a hard time picking up on the humor in Dogberry's malapropisms. They'll say that, well, they just don't understand him because of this Shakespearean language they're not familiar with, not understanding that the whole idea is that what this idiot is saying isn't supposed to make any sense. Yes, it's unfortunate, but there are other ways to keep the scene humorous, and adding physical comedy that the author did not intend and which totally does not fit is not the answer. And it denies Shakespeare's genius in the comedy he already created with this great character. I've seen various productions where the director put in similar slapstick things that are not only uncalled for, but that deny the genius of the humor that's already there. And this is just one more that prevented this good Shakespearean adaptation from being a great one. Now, before we get to the top 5, I want to say something about one of the worst habits that directors of film adaptations are known to do. And it is the culprit in all of my top 5. And it's understandable that because the stage is a lot more restrictive in terms of what you can do, while film gives you far greater liberties to move the scene from place to place, a director is going to want to do so as much as possible. But just because you can is not a good reason for doing anything in life. And this is no different. The way that something was originally written in a way that it could be confined to the space of a stage may have been limiting, but those limitations often create moments of riveting drama. Drama that just isn't the same when you insist on changing it. One of the things that makes William Inge's Bus Stop so special is the way we are introduced to all of these fascinating characters, none of whom is the star or takes more than his share of the spotlight, who are all stuck together in this one place for the duration of the play. Here, the insistence on taking the story outside of that diner and out to Beau's rodeo and to Cherie's nightclub, that was clearly motivated not just by the desire to film in other locations, but to film additional scenes that could give more screen time to Marilyn Monroe and make it an Oscar bait vehicle to showcase their big star. But the need to make Cherie the undisputed star of the show and all others supporting players is such a maddening betrayal of the aforementioned structure of the play, which is really what made the play so great. Whereas in Bus Stop, it was the fascinating character study that suffered as a result of the insistence on taking the story beyond the play's single set, with Arthur Miller's masterpiece, it is the gut-wrenching revelation about the father's guilt. In the film adaptation, we get to go visit the father's partner who took the heat in prison. Again, because we can. And the result is Chris piecing things together for himself to figure out who is really guilty. Again, in real life, that is probably a lot closer to the way something like that would be discovered. But it is just so much more dramatic the way it happens in the play, where his mother has known about his father's guilt all along and has been covering for him and blurts it out in a very dramatic moment. The drama is legendary when she's pushed to the edge about why she won't accept that her other son is dead, and in a fit of rage blurts out that he can't be dead because if he is, it's because your father killed him like he killed all those other pilots. It's heartbreaking, but that of course is what makes for great drama. And that explosion's omission from the film version is a major loss. Now, you may think this is inconsistent for me to complain about this after my previous analysis of changes that tried to make things less sad, but in the 90s adaptation of The Crucible, the insistence on including a final scene that makes it sadder by showing the hanging is also totally uncalled for because it undermines the major theme that Arthur Miller was trying to get across. Sometimes it's appropriate for a play to end as an unmitigated tragedy, and it's a mistake to soften that. But here, there was definitely a reason for the play to end with Proctor being taken off to his execution while his wife delivers her moving line.
He hath his goodness now. God forbid I take it from him.
That line cements the whole point Miller was trying to make about witch hunts like the one that he and other writers were currently facing from Joe McCarthy, and wanting to make a powerful statement about how even those who were being ruined by doing the right thing, they needed this play to celebrate the fact that they were in fact doing the right thing by refusing to cooperate with the witch hunt. That closing line was a beautiful and uplifting reminder of that fact, and its impact is completely undermined by then going on to watch the execution rather than ending the show right there like they were supposed to. Another major component of drama that can be destroyed by showing your audience too much is suspense. Now, it's an early lesson all writers are taught about suspense, that you create it by withholding exposition, not by providing it. It obviously wasn't being too lazy to write another scene that kept Shakespeare from writing one showing the actual murder of Duncan. nor was it his hesitancy to write such graphic scenes into his plays, especially this one. In the great scene that follows, where Lady Macbeth is waiting for him before he dramatically shows up with the bloody hands that all great Neptune's oceans won't wash clean, she keeps asking herself the question of whether or not he actually has had the nerve to go through with it, because she doesn't know. And neither does the audience. A great moment of suspense, which is pretty well destroyed if we already know the answer to the question because we just saw it. Taking the #1 spot has got to be the 2014 adaptation of Strindberg's classic Miss Julie, and the absolutely insane decision to include a final shot showing that she did indeed slit her wrist. You can say that it was pretty obvious what she's going to do when he hands her the razor at the end, but Strindberg didn't show us that for a reason. You know, it's also pretty clearly implied that Mickey Rourke doesn't survive that jump at the end of The Wrestler. And hey, we could even imagine that Butch and Sundance managed to shoot their way out of their predicament in Bolivia and that they make it safely to Australia. Sure, it's ridiculous, but there's a reason those filmmakers chose to freeze the action at those points. The whole beauty of great art is that it's supposed to make us think and ask questions. Now, adding unnecessary extras to undermine a theme or to weaken suspense is one thing, but undermining the entire purpose for which we enjoy art certainly takes the cake. So this adaptation's position in the #1 spot on this list was not even a close call. So, what did I miss? What classic works of literature do you feel were absolutely butchered in their film adaptations? And what was the change that you found the most inexcusable? Let me know down in the comments. And stay tuned for a follow-up video that I have planned where we'll do the opposite, and we'll look at some examples of film adaptations where something that's different from the play may actually be better. I'll see you all real soon. Bye for now.